I want to welcome you to our webinar today focused on design and causes. We have two really exciting panelists joining us, Amy McAdams as well as Nathan Yoder, and I will let each of them give you a longer introduction of their history and what they've done in design. Amy McAdams is an owner of her own design business, and she has done a lot in the design world, but in local culture events and in cause work throughout Indianapolis. And Nathan Yoder has worked with Sevenly, and he now is his own freelance illustrator as well. So we've got some incredible talent, and I can't wait to hear some of their story. So let's go ahead and get started. Amy, are you there?
I'm here.
Why don't you go start by just telling us a little bit about your background and how you got interested in design?
Okay. Well, I am Hoosier born and bred, and when I was a little kid, I kind of was the little kid who was always interested in drawing and doing all that stuff. So that was way back before the internet and everything else. And they put me in some drawing classes, and when I was in high school, I heard about this thing called commercial art and design that sounded like you could actually make some money doing it. So instead of doing a starting artist approach, I thought I would try that. And that's been about 20 years ago. And since then, I have worked at some, a handful of agencies and marketing firms. And after doing that for a while, decided that I would really like to do my own thing and work for some small businesses locally, which is my passion, is to help people who are starting up, or nonprofits and organizations get on there and have a really strong positive experience and actually be partners in branding their organizations or doing any kind of materials that they want, and just trying to be happy and beautiful and doing that. So I've been doing my own thing for about 10 years. And have stayed in Indianapolis. I recently just got an office downtown, kind of the next step up from co-working. So me and three other fellow designers slash geeky kind of tech guys all share an office downtown Indianapolis. So so that brings me to the present. I do a lot of design work for, like I said, local small businesses here in Indianapolis, and I do other work nationally, but that's pretty much my passion.
Awesome. So since you do your own thing, can you describe to us sort of a day in the life of Amy?
A day in the life of Amy, which has changed drastically since I now am the mother of a 3 and a 1-year-old. Usually there's some scurrying involved in everyday life, and getting the kids ready, getting them out the door daycare, getting to the office, which we're in transition with moving downtown to a place called Fletcher Place we're super excited about, so that'll get me closer to my office. And just basically I come in, I get on the emails right away, make sure there's nothing hot, crazy, or important to do first and foremost. I've just recently brought in the use of Trello.com, Trello just to help me organize. I used to use Google Apps to have like a little running tally of what jobs I'm working on, but now I get on my Trello, I organize my day to make sure I've got everything on there. Any given day I'm working on anywhere from 4 to 10 projects, either doing revision rounds or concepting and sketching or brainstorming with clients and having meetings. And what used to be long, long days have now become anywhere from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock days because of my kids' schedules. So I fit a lot in a very short time work-wise, but I find that actually helps me create better and more consistently better things, I think, because I'm on a deadline and I work really well on a deadline. And then I work a little bit at night and kind of get my day organized for the following day, and it's just wake up and kind of the same thing again, and just different clients, and it keeps me on my toes for sure.
Very cool. Well, I know that as designers, we never choose favorites, but can you talk about one of your favorite projects that you've done in the past?
I have a lot of favorite clients locally. Per se, not really Projects, I really love working with Just Pop In, who is a local popcorn shop. It's a couple of sisters who are twins, and they're just so energetic and so enthusiastic about life that it's totally contagious. So I do a lot of packaging products for them, and that's a really, really fun collaborative effort. I would say recently, a buddy of mine, I really like to collaborate, and one of the guys I went into the office space with, and actually, Laura, there's a slide. It's actually the second slide I sent you about, it's the Center for Inquiry slide.
Okay.
If you can get that up. This was a project taken on by a colleague of mine, Ryan Hunley, who runs Second Street Creative, who is fantastic at branding, fantastic at web design. And we decided that we were going to rebrand the Center for Inquiry, which is a magnet school here in Indianapolis. And what was happening is that IPS, Indianapolis Public Schools, was coming to all the individual public schools and saying, hey, we're going to rebrand you, and whether you like it or not kind of thing. And it wasn't, I would say, the most aesthetically pleasing brand change. So we kind of went in and said, hey, we really like what you're doing. We have young kids, and we would love our kids to attend the school. We just think it's so great. So, as interested parents and investing in the community, we really want to help you do this, make it great. And so they talked to IPS. IPS said, that's great, let these people come in. So Ryan and I basically went in and addressed some of the concerns and some of the things they wanted, which on the left you'll see they needed family, they needed brand recognition, cohesiveness, consistency, adaptable system, and simplicity. And the Center for Inquiry was having a little bit of an issue with the visuals and the branding of it, because there are 3 schools, and there was a difference, different parents and there were bumper stickers and things that weren't consistent. So we wanted to come in and give each school a unified look, but a separate identity, I guess, in a way. So we came up with the parent brand for the whole school, which is at the top, and then you see the established 1993 kind of comes out for the second tier, which gives each school their own identity, but yet tells the story of them being part of one unified front. And then the third tier down, you'll see we decided to do little mascot shields that could be more for promotional items and T-shirts and things for the kids, because they're very kid-driven, and we wanted to give something to the kids that would be really exciting. And so we did this. We thought it would be cool to do a same shape for a mascot head, and then changing the lines within, which is kind of representative of each school. Each school has kind of a different strong point that if you ask the parents and teachers, they would be able to describe that to you. So we thought, hey, what's cool is that these are all part of the unified family, but each has its own individual strong points, and we can mimic that in the mascots. So I hand drew the mascots and got those in there, and then the last one you'll see is, their bumper sticker and things like that. So we were able to give an organization something that they can use for years and years. And that's something I really enjoy doing, even as a pro bono project, to say, I want to come in and help small people who don't have money and who need the help to, promote to current families to keep this positive thing in our city going. So I would say that was one of the funnest, most recent projects that I worked on.
Very cool. Yes, I definitely like the energy you have around this. So what was the reaction? Have you talked to people in the community or people at the schools on their reaction to this project?
Yes, actually, we were lucky enough to be at the unveiling of it to the teachers and administration. So they had their annual, before the school started, just a pep rally for them. And so Ryan and I were there, and we got to unveil it, and it was really cool to see everybody embrace it. And I have to say on my end, because I did the mascots, I was a little bit nervous because they're a little Voltron-y, kind of transforming it a little bit, and they're a little bit different from your typical mascot. So I didn't know what the reaction was going to be, but they were really excited. And what was funny is that we mocked up a mug, like a coffee mug, with one of the little shields on it, and we had so many teachers coming up saying, "Where's our mug? We thought we were getting a mug." And so we were like, "Oh, well, this is cool. Like, they're excited to get their hands on these things." So just seeing that, like, makes it so worth it to see everybody just really get involved in it and really
Yeah, absolutely.
love it and want to embrace it. Was just a fantastic.
Very cool. So, I mean, since you were designing for a school, it had to have been a little bit of a challenge in terms of you're sort of designing for students, but you're also designing for parents and you're also designing for the school itself and administration. Can you talk about how you navigated doing that when you had so many different audiences?
Oh yes, like that was tough because when we first went in, the person who founded the school back in '93 was she did not want to change. Like she really liked their current logo, which actually is where kind of the question mark, the Q question mark came from. Their original logo was an exclamation point question mark, inquiring to find people inquiring to find solutions, and which was the exclamation point. So we thought that's why we did kind of so many options for them, because we wanted to give them a system that would be, it would work for everyone, because you have the more like almost corporate looking overarching brand. And then you have the fun things that the kids can really work with and have, but it still brands the schools consistently. So we were very mindful when we sat down with the founding person, who is now the principal of one of the schools, to really be mindful of working in some elements that she really felt they were close to her. So the question mark was something we thought we need to make sure this works. And if you'll notice, she was even more pleased because in the mascots you'll see there are little exclamation points hidden in the faces and the tops of the heads. So we were able to work in that question mark exclamation point throughout, to really make her happy. And she was just, by the end of it, she had fully embraced the new look. And I actually have to say, at the beginning of it, I thought there was absolutely no way she was going to be on board for anything we did. So that, I mean, I think listening and really, even though it wasn't maybe our first choice for the logo redesign, we knew that it was something that was close to her and that would make her happy. So I think that was a huge learning experience for me. And it always is. At the end of the day, it's your client's voice. It's not necessarily your voice. You can put your voice in there a little bit, but your client's who's most important.
Absolutely. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about your process that you go through with a new client, especially in regards to branding?
Sure. Yeah, and again, I did a little silly slide. That's the first one in your slide batch. Um, usually I work with a lot of newer clients who come along and just need a one-time, hey, I need a logo, hey, I need this. But I also work with a lot of people, like I said, just pop in, and some other local organizations that come. I work with them consistently, like Indiana Landmarks and some other places. So usually what will happen is I get a phone call or an email from the client. We talk briefly about what's going on. There's an interview kind of process as far as, a lot of times if I worked with them before, they know what to tell me. So it's just like, here's the size, here's what it needs to say, here's the hierarchy of what it needs to say, color scheme, and here's our, delivery date. But then sometimes I'll have to get on the phone, or there'll be an in-person kind of thing where we'll just talk through everything. And then there's research on both sides. So whether that be a pin board, sometimes we'll do pin boards together where we're researching and I'm seeing what they think is, the look and feel they say. Because again, sometimes somebody will say, I want it to be modern, but their interpretation of modern is way different than my interpretation of modern. So, for example, I'm working with a cider company right now who's going to be opening a cider distillery, I don't even know what that, cider brewery in Indianapolis. And right now we're co-pinning to a pin board, and it's, we're commenting in the pin board about what we like and what we don't like, and that's so helpful for me as a visual person to see that. So there's that research element, and then I go in after everybody's kind of said their piece and given all the inspiration images, and I organize it, and I kind of get a plan of attack, and then I go in and I sketch. And in the research organization phase, I go into other sites and I look on sites like Dribbble and Logo Lounge and Pinterest and FPO for print only, and just kind of look around. And I look in books and look around and get inspiration. And then I get into Sketchbook, and I've kind of honed in where I don't spend as much time sketching as I used to, and they're very raw, like my top 3. And usually I will show a client 2 or 3 ideas when we get started. Back when I first started, I was showing like 10, 15, and it was just killing me to try to give that many versions. So I'll refine that. I present it to the client. and then they go back with it. They live with it for a while. They come back with changes, and then I refine again, and I present again, and then refine, and that can be et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until we get to the finished product. And that's pretty much right on par with a logo job or a poster job or whatnot.
Wonderful. Can you talk about an example of either a logo or just a project that you did that generated a lot of excitement and kind of what that looked like and how it happened?
It's funny. I would say one of the ones that really I get more recognition out of, and it was funny. I do a lot of work through agencies and marketing firms where they will hire me and I will do the design of a big thing, and they'll usually get all the glory for it. But I do a lot of work with Well Done Marketing, who is a local firm, and I did the Indie Reads Books logo for them back in the day, and that was a lot of like back and forth and definitely a collaborative. Ended up being really more of a collaborative thing between me and the actual client. So they kind of Well Done stepped out, but I surprisingly get more recognition for that than I ever expected. Because although I like that logo and I think it's a good logo, like it just definitely wouldn't be the thing that I thought people would say, oh gosh, you did that logo. But the one thing about it is Indie Reads, for those of you who don't know, is a great bookstore that really does a lot for the community, and it's awesome. I mean, it's on, in a place that really needed something like that, and it goes back to a nonprofit, the Linking nonprofit, and it's just, for me to get recognition for that is just awesome. I would love to work with more people like that. So, that's great. That's good to me.
Great. So when you're designing for someone like Indie Reads, a nonprofit like that, how does that differ when you design for a bigger company?
It helps because even though Indie Reads does have a board, a lot of times I'm working directly with the one person who is making the decisions. So that kind of, when I do bigger clients, even though there's more money there, there's more hoops to jump through. There are more people to please. And, I think a really good example of that is if you're comparing Indie Reads where I'm working with one person and, even though there were multiple rounds of revisions, back in the day, this is so embarrassing that I even did this logo because it's terrible. But I'll just admit that I did the Peyton Manning's Children's Hospital logo, and I was hired by St. Vincent as a freelancer to do it, and it started off so cool. And I never met Peyton, but I was getting feedback directly from Peyton about the first versions, and they were looking really cool and really cool. But then it got to the board, and it just was so many voices had to be heard, and there was not someone, I think hindsight, we needed someone who could really wrangle that and like kind of refine and get one message across. But that thing turned out to be just hot mess, like of kid typeface, like terribleness. And I look at it now and I kind of cringe because it just ended up being way farther from what we ever originally anticipated. And I will go back and look at the original concepts, and they were so cool and so fun and so different. And I think that's the big difference when you work with a big company. Sometimes, although it seems like it's going to be a really fun thing, it just starts to be heartbreaking because even though like I said at the beginning, it is about your client's voice. When there are like 10 voices, it's really hard to make something good.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we we all struggle with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of along those lines, do you ever do testing with your designs? Like where you might,
The only testing I've ever done is among peers. Among peers who, I mean, that's really as far as it goes. My husband's a copywriter, but he's in the creative field, so a lot of times at dinner or after the kids go to bed, we're talking about projects we're working on and bouncing ideas off each other, so that helps me a lot. But, if I ever really need to get some input from people, I will totally poll my friends who are in the creative industry or poll friends who are in the industry that I'm working in if I know people, and just see what their feeling is about what I'm working on and get feedback. But I've never actually, gone out and actually hired a company to do anything like that.
okay. I'm sure you've had clients like this where they come to you and they have, all these different programs or all of this kind of complex, convoluted messaging, and they're trying to sift through that and really figure out who they are. Can you talk about that process and how you help them make things more concise or make things more clear through a logo or branding exercises and what that looks like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think definitely a lot of that it really is about getting that taken care of up front in the question and answer portion. I do a lot of, oh, hold on. Can you even hear this coming up, or is that just me? I've got somebody instant messaging me.
We're
Can you
not
hear that
hearing
on your
it.
end?
You're good.
Okay, good. Okay, good. And I'm like, stop instant messaging me. I'm busy. A lot of it, I've actually struggled with this, honestly. I struggle with having asking the right questions sometimes, because sometimes you're asking the questions you think are right at the time, and then you get 3 versions in, and you're like you're not asking the right questions. This is something I struggle with. Sometimes you just hit the nail right on the head. From the beginning, you're meeting the person, and it's just really there's a connection. There's the right questions are asked. They come prepared. That helps a lot when they come prepared. Like you said, some people just don't know, and so it's a matter of kind of, I think, in the beginning, getting visuals in front of them, and that's where that pen board comes in. Because if I'm pinning things to that, and they're seeing it, they're like, that is not what I'm thinking, then that can clear that whole direction out of my head. And it's a process. I mean, for some of those harder ones, it's not 2 or 3 rounds of revisions. It's 10, 15, and even then they come back, 3 or 4 months later and like, oh, can we do this or can we do that? And you kind of try to keep them on track and say, I know this seems like you're already sick of it, but you got to hold steady with it, and keep going, because actually introducing a brand and keeping it consistent can get boring really quickly.
So to that point, what kinds of things would be helpful? A lot of the people in our audience right now are probably development directors or marketers, and would be hiring a designer. So what kind of things could they do as the client to make design process more successful?
I just think coming to a meeting and knowing that your answer can't be, I don't know, I really don't have an idea. Because I think that's something that a lot of creatives think, well, you definitely, everybody has an idea in their head. And I think if clients could be, and I think creatives too, about, I think if the communication could be better. And I think for clients, if they could come armed with, personally for me, hey, I saw these 5 things, and I really like what they're doing here, and this is what I like about each of them. And, here's something about our company, and here are the 3 words that I really think it represents our company, and just, I think, being a little bit more aware on their end, because I think sometimes, and this speaks for myself too, it's really hard to be aware of your business, and really how you want to present yourself. And you may think but then somebody will start asking you questions, and you're like, oh my God, I can't even think of 3 words to describe my business. But yeah, I think just being better informed about how you want to be to the people you are being that to is super important and super helpful for a designer. Because at the end of the day, we can make you look good, but your product way better than anybody else is ever going to know.
Great. Well, we have just a few minutes left here with Amy, so I'd like to open it up to anyone to type in some questions. So if you do have a question for Amy, feel free to type it into our question box. We did get one question asking, going back to the Center for Inquiry, what types of roadblocks arose in the project, and were the clients receptive?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting one. In that process, we actually had to present to somebody high up in IPS, and it was very uncomfortable because I don't think they were really happy that they were hiring an outside person to do it. And by hiring, I'm like, we're sitting there as being potential parents, and we've done it all for free, so we weren't making anything off of it. But it was just a very uncomfortable situation because there were people who weren't receptive of someone outside of the family doing it. And you just kind of had to be tough and know that you were doing it for the right reasons. And really what you see in that slide is pretty much close to what the first incarnations were of each of those, because we basically presented that the main logo was one option that was a little less refined than that, and then those shields were another option. So they were kind of the finished product was a hybrid of a couple of different options that were presented, but surprisingly, there were not many changes in that one. Like, I refined the little mascots a little bit and simplified them, but I pleasantly surprised that there weren't a lot of roadblocks there.
Great. And then we got another one. At what point do you stop pushing back against a nonprofit board when it comes to design?
Oh, that's a good question. When it's just, probably depends on what my workload is at the time, because then your threshold for just being done is just, it kind of depends on where you are in your life. And, if you're feeling extra strong and extra giving and extra, you're really devoted to that particular cause, then you push a little bit. But I would say you just kind of know when you're not going to win that battle, and you just choose to fight a different battle on a different day, and then you kind of don't ever put that out there. You try to make sure nobody ever tells anybody that you did that logo or that project, because I have got a lot of those in my portfolio that nobody will ever see. But you start to know that it's just not worth it, and it's not worth your time, and you just kind of choose not to work with that person again. I mean, and you just part ways amicably.
So Amy, do you have any new projects that you're working on right now that you're really excited about?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I have a kind of a handful that are really exciting. We're actually unveiling the logo this Friday at, it starts with art event, but I'm working with Travis D. Nicola and Indie Writes and Indie Reads Books and the Simon family, and we're doing a bookshare program that's going to be going in downtown. It's hybrid art installation by local artists who are going to be building the bookshares. And then Indie Reads Books is going to be basically filling the book shares. So I'm branding that and actually came up with the name of it, so I'm pretty excited about that. I never name things. That never happens. So that one is really exciting. We're in the finishing stages of getting the Indie Writes book cover finished up. And like I said, I'm doing packaging and logo design for that cider company that's going to be in Indianapolis next year. So those are three that I'm just really, really excited about.
Wonderful. Well, we have one last question here. How do you sell a design and aesthetics to nonprofits, and how do you communicate the importance and impact of good design?
Well, a lot of times you go into it knowing you're going to be working on a little bit of a shoestring budget. Like, I know when I'm working with certain nonprofits that I'm not going to be making as much, which is fine, because if it's a cause close to my heart, I'm absolutely fine with that. But usually the people who approach me, and maybe I've just been lucky, have been people who want the aesthetics to be there, and they want it to be better than what it is. And a lot of them come in with having this existing logo that somebody's cousin did when they started the organization, and they're like, we just want to make this better. So I've been really lucky in that aspect. I mean, there have been moments where I said there are boards that don't have designers on the board, or they just have people who want to be, and it just gets to be a mess. But for the most part, I have to say, nonprofits have been pretty receptive to wanting it to be better, and especially if they're getting it at a discounted rate, that definitely helps.
Great. Well, this has been very informative, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you let people know how they can find you and get a hold of you on social media or through email?
Definitely. My website, which has my portfolio, is amymcadams.com. And if you go to Instagram or Pinterest or anything like that, I'm Amy Does It. That's my Twitter as well. And I have an Etsy shop, Amy McAdams Design, so feel free to go there and look around. But yeah, pretty much if you Google Amy McAdams Design, I think I come up. You might get some Rachel McAdams and some Amy Adams, but if you sift through enough, you'll find me.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. We've really appreciated having you on here.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you very much, Laura.
All right. Bye-bye.